The objective is multiplying rational numbers, specifically fractions. You remember rational numbers include whole numbers, their opposites, so that's all the integers, all fractions and decimals, including positive and negative. So there's a lot of things under rational numbers, but today we're just going to talk about fractions. So the key word is fractions. Any mixed numbers need to be rewritten as fractions because it just is easier this way. If you would like to learn how to multiply with mixed numbers, come in and see me, okay? So I'm just going to teach you this way because it's just the best way to do it. All right, there are 4 steps, so please write these down. Number 1, look at the signs and write equals negative after your problem, if it's going to be negative, or just equals after your problem if it's going to be positive, before you do anything else. Just decide what the sign of your answer is going to be. Number 2, see if you can simplify the problem. So simplify means do everything you can do. So in this case, it means reduce. So we want to see if there's a common factor in any numerator and denominator that we can simplify. Number 3, multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. And then finally, your 4th step is to double check that you did the sign, because sometimes we forget, and that your answer is simplified, which is reduced in this case as much as we can. All right, so our first example is 3/4 times 5/7. They're both positive. We're happy. We don't have to worry about the negative, so I'm just going to write equals. And there's also nothing I can simplify because 3 doesn't have any common factor with 4 or 7, and 5 doesn't have any common factor with 7 or 5. So I can't reduce an individual fraction or diagonally. So now I'm just going to multiply straight across. 3 times 5 is 15, and 4 times 7 is 28. And I'm finished with that problem. Here's another problem. 3/4 times -8. Now when I have a whole number times a fraction, I need to make the whole number into a fraction, so I have a numerator and a denominator. So 3/4 stays as 3/4 times. I always like to put my negative, if it's a negative, up by the numerator, because that way it doesn't maybe blend into the operation or the equal sign or whatever. So I'm going to write -8 over 1 because any whole number can be made into a fraction by putting it over 1. Now I'm going to look at my problem and say, is this answer going to be positive or negative? Remember, the rules for positive and negative are different for multiplying and dividing than they are for adding and subtracting. For multiplying and dividing, if the signs are different, the answer is negative. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive. So this is going to be negative because this is a positive and that's a negative. So I wrote my equals negative. Now I see if I can simplify. Yep, 4 and 8 have a common factor. So I'm going to cross them both out. Now I could divide by 2 because 2 goes into both 4 and 8, but then I would have a 2 and a 4 and I'd have to simplify again. So I try to divide by the biggest common factor. So 4 goes into itself once, 4 goes into 8 twice. I'm not even worrying about the negative anymore because I already decided that my answer is negative. So now I just multiply the numerator. 3 times 2 is 6, and since my denominators are both 1, I'm not going to write 6 over 1 because then I'd have to simplify that and say equals 6. And I don't want to have to do extra steps. All right. Oh, here we have 2 mixed numbers, so I'm going to change them into improper fractions. So I'm going to say negative. I write down the negative, and then I just don't worry about it. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5 times negative. 4 times 1 is, 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 is plus 4 is 9. Get it out there, Mrs. Bowden. So I don't say 5 times -1. I just say 5 times 1. I copy down my negative, and then I don't worry about it when I'm changing from mixed numbers to improper fractions. All right. Now I look. What are my signs? Are they the same or are they different? The same, so that makes it positive. So I can just write equals. Now I'm going to ignore the negatives, and I'm just going to simplify. Hey, 9 and 3 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into itself once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 5 and 5 have a common factor of 5. 5 goes into itself once. 5 goes into itself once. Now I just multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 in the denominator, I'm just going to leave it as 3. Okay, couple more. The word of, you know how we've been translating from English to math? Well, the word of means multiply in math. That's very important. Please write that down. Let's put a star by that. Yay! So if I ask you what is 1/2 of 28, you would bring down the 1/2, you would translate of to your multiplying, and then 28. Now, 28 is a whole number, so I need to make it into a fraction. So here, the way I wrote it, I can just do this. Put it over 1. Now, is my answer going to be positive or negative? Well, there's no negative, so it's just going to be positive. Can I simplify anything? Yes. 2 goes into itself once. 2 goes into 28. 14 times. I gave you a pause so you could tell the answer out loud. 1 times 14 is 14. And 1 times 1 is 1, so I'm not going to put a denominator. All right, let's do a word problem. You ate 1/2 of the leftover pizza. There was 2/5 of the original pizza left over. That's how much you had brought home. Let's pretend it's for breakfast. So how much did you eat? So what is the question that you're being asked? You're being asked, what is 1/2 of 2/5? The hardest thing about word problems is just figuring out what you're being asked. And if you read it, you can pretty much hopefully figure that out. So that's the same as 1/2 times 2/5, because of means multiply. Now, they're both positive, so my answer will be positive. I can simplify. There's a common factor of 2. 2 goes into itself once. 2 goes into itself once. Multiply the numerator. 1 times 1 is 1. Multiply the denominator. 1 times 5 is 5. So you ate 1/5 of the pizza, which makes sense. If there's 2/5 left, half of it would be 1/5. All right, here you're just given a problem. What is 2/3 of 3 1/2? So I could write down the problem like I did here, straight like it is, but I noticed that there's an improper fraction, a mixed number that I need to make into an improper fraction. So I'm going to do that. 2/3 times, let's make it into the improper fraction now. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Okay? Once again, they're both positives, so I don't have to worry about it being negative, so I'll just put equals. I see a common factor. 2 goes into itself once, 2 goes into itself once. Now I'm going to multiply, and I get 7/3, because 1 times 7 is 7, and 3 times 1 is 3. Now, since this problem had a mixed number in it, we like to change our answer back to a mixed number, okay? Because 2/3 of 3 1/2 is 7/3, but let's change that back. So we do that, remember, by dividing the denominator into the numerator. That gives us the whole number. 3 goes into 7 2 times, because 3 times 2 is 6. And how many from 6 to 7, how many do we have left over? 1. So that's our numerator, and the denominator does not change. You like that? What did I almost make? I almost made it 2. So let's do it again. 3 goes into 7 twice with 1 left over, so it's 2 1/3. So 2/3 of 3 1/2 is 2 1/3. Okay, and let's read this one, and then I'll read that. The book is normally $20. It's on sale 1/4 off. How much will you save, and what will you pay? So the question you have to think of that they're asking us is, what is 1/4 of 20? So I know that I can figure that out because I copy down my fraction, I change the word of to multiplying, I write down my whole number, and then I'll just put that over 1 to make it be a fraction also. I see there's no negative, so I know it's just going to be positive. I see 4 and 20 have a common factor of 4, so I simplify. 4 goes into itself once, 4 goes into 25 times. Multiply straight across. 1 times 5 is 5, and the denominator is 1 times 1. So that's my 1/4 of 20. So 1/4 of 20 is $5. So that's how much I'm going to save. How do I figure out what will I pay? Well, I pay the difference between how much it costs and how much I'll save. So I'll say $20 minus $5, I'm paying $15, okay? And word problems usually have mixed number answers. So if for some reason this hadn't turned out evenly, we would have written it as a mixed number. We wouldn't have just made a fraction with it. All right, that's it.